Working on my Chevy Cobalt SS, and this is part 2 of removing the engine to do the engine replacement. So like I said in the last video, this is the 2.4 liter. I've already removed a lot of the stuff around the engine to make room. So now I'm going to remove the AC condenser, just pull that away, and remove the heater core hoses. These are stuck on pretty good, so I'm actually probably just going to cut a little portion of that off and then get new hoses, or there's probably enough room for them to even fit with a inch less. I'm going to pull the exhaust back a little bit, and right now I'm going to remove the passenger side tire, take off the harmonic balancer, and then in the very back of the engine there's one bolt right below the coolant crossover tube that goes from the water pump to the thermostat. It's extremely hard to get to. You have to use a bunch of long sockets. I'll include a picture of what that looks like. And there's basically 3 bolts on this side of the engine, but one is really hard to get to. So when I remove the front tire, there are a couple bolts on the bottom of the engine that I'm going to remove, and then like I said, I'm going to remove some of the accessories on the front of the engine. Looks like it might rain right now, but they said it's meant to get sunny a little bit later, so we'll see how much I get done before it starts raining. I might have to take a little break and come back out here. The harmonic balancer is not pressed on, it's just pushes on, and is keyed. That's how you find the placement when you put it back on, and that's going to give it a lot more room. It's like the front seal of this blew out. Put this right in the trunk with the rest of the parts. Next thing I'm going to do is get the bolts for the end that connect the engine to the transmission from the very back of the engine, and I'm going to insert a picture of the bolt I'm going to get with the super long extension that is right below the exhaust manifold. There's a coolant pipe as a crossover, and it's right over there, and I'm gonna insert a picture of that on one of my other engines. So let me get underneath here and see how much I can show you. All right, so this is gonna be impossible to film. One bolt, and there's one more. There's one more back here. there's bolt number 2. These two are on the upper part. Let me show you a little clip on my other engine. All right, here is my Ecotech 2.2, and there is one of the bolts, and then the second bolt goes right there. So right here, right below the thermostat housing, and then right below that is another bolt. The problem with this one is the transmission comes right there, so you have to get between the exhaust and the top of the transmission. It's just really tight. All right, here's a look at the crazy setup I had to have. A flexible 1/2-inch wrench, one extension, super long extension, a U-joint there, a U-joint there that I'd put a little piece of tape on so it wouldn't flop around, and then the 18mm socket to go the entire length of the engine and then down. So that's the hardest part about taking out these engines, is literally right there. All right, let me get below the engine. Okay, there's one right below where the starter would go, and then another one right there, and then one more right there, and then one more right behind it, right below the starter. I always like starting with the hard ones first and get them out of the way. Okay, the longer one, this one right here, that's longer. The reason why it's longer is because it has to go through the block, the transmission, then the transmission mount. So that's something to keep in mind when you're putting it back together. Alright, another regular one. The only long one is the one that goes into the transmission mount. All right, one more on top right there. This is one of the reasons why we're removing the thermostat housing. It just gives you so much room down here. Okay, so there's a total of 8 bolts for the transmission to engine, and one of them is the long one for, one of the 8 is the long one that goes from the transmission through the engine, through the transmission, and into the transmission mount, into the Ziploc bag, and that's the long one right there. There we go. All right, next thing I'm going to do is disconnect the air conditioner. Well, I'm going to disconnect the air conditioner condenser just to set it aside. All right, and there's the third one. And they're all 3 the same size. So on this one here, you just push down and it pulls right off. So you give it a little push right there. Let's see. Give this part a little push, and it just pulls right out. And that is for the AC. That is for the cooling fan. Next, I'm going to disconnect the fuel line. Okay, now I'm going to release the fuel pressure with the Schrader valve. Some gas is going to come out. All right, put that back on. And remove the safety clamp for the fuel line. Then I'm going to use a fuel line tool, and this is 5/16. A little bit of fuel is always going to drip out. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is remove the hood and the hood strut. It takes a 13mm, and then you need a small screwdriver to remove the hood strut. What's really cool is you can tell these bolts have never been removed before, so this hood has never been off. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I always use I usually use a old seat belt instead of a chain, and you put that around these hooks that are actually bolted on from the factory for removing the engine. One on the front, one on the back. Alright, there we go. Seatbelt strap hooked up. So after I get the engine hoist hooked to the strap, then I'm going to start removing the upper motor mounts and then the lower engine motor mount, which is right there. This is the bottom engine mount that mounts to the transmission, and it takes a 15mm. Now you can remove these two bolts, but you either need a wrench with a lot of leverage or a really shallow socket, because your axle is in the way for it to fit a socket, a ratchet, and have any room. One of the reasons why it's always best to remove the harder ones first, because I have tension on the engine from the engine hoist, and I haven't removed the upper motor mount, because if there was a lot of pressure on this, it actually would be hard to remove. So you always get to the super hard ones first, and then work your way to the more accessible ones. Put a little pressure on the engine hoist. And these either take a an Allen wrench socket or a 15 millimeter. Alright, if you get to the point where you shake the engine and it doesn't come loose, it's because you have one more bolt left on it. So the one that I still need to remove is this one right here. It's right above the starter, right behind the oil pressure sensor. Nice. I have a nice little separation right there, as you can see. And so now I'm going to get a little pry bar and raise and lower the engine a couple times. There we go. Mm-hmm. Hello. How you doing? There we go. Almost out. Always something still connected. That's why you go slowly and look for everything. Should be in no rush. There we go. Ecotec 2.4 liter engine. And now I'm going to completely detail the engine compartment before I go in with the replacement. Now I'm going to lower it, get it more situated, and pull it off to the side. Now by pulling this in closer, it's going to make it easier to push. You want to keep the lower center of gravity as you can. So here's a quick look at the transmission, and you can see all the bolt holes. This is the first bolt that's really hard to get to, and you can see the transmission blocks it, so you have to take an extension to go all the way over there up to that one. And then the second one right below the thermostat housing is just as hard to get to. And then this one over here is right above the starter. It's not hard to get to, but it's hidden. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts, and then 2 that mount it to the transmission, and then the ones up here. Yeah, I'm going to detail out this entire engine bay and clean up the other engine a little bit. And here is the 2.4 liter. I'm going to switch over all the wiring, and then at some point I'm going to rebuild this. So stay tuned. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.